Okay, this is part 2 of the video for 4.1 Quack, and our grammar skill this week is determining the differences between who and whom and how to determine when to use which form of the word. So essentially you want to use who when who acts as the subject of a verb. Okay, so it's actually going to be pretty important that you know your parts of speech and the subject and objective parts of sentences and pronouns in order to understand this skill. So in the sentence, who received the award, you would then put a blank in place of who to answer that question. Who received the award? Blank received the award. So in this situation, who acts as the subject of the verb received. Okay, so you would want to use who in that situation rather than whom, since who acts as the subject. You also want to use who when who acts as a predicate nominative. So a predicate nominative is actually the object of a linking verb when that linking verb is replacing the subject. So I'll show you what I mean here. In the sentence, the recipient of the award was who. In order to answer that question, you switch it to a sentence. You would say the recipient of the award is blank. Okay, so in this situation, because that blank is the recipient of the award, which is also the subject of the sentence, that would be a predicate nominative, and so you would go ahead and use who in that instance. You're going to want to use whom when whom acts as an indirect object. Okay, so in the sentence, whom did the Academy give the award to? If you rephrase that sentence into a statement, it would say the Academy gave the award to blank. So just like with Spanish or French, an indirect object is going to answer the question to who or what for the verb, and so acting as the indirect object of the verb gave is to blank, so you would use whom in that instance. Similarly, you'd use whom when you're using the object of a preposition. So to whom did they give the award? They gave the award to blank. In that situation, that blank would be the object of the preposition to, so you would use whom rather than who. Okay, just to review for a second, predicate nominatives come after linking verbs and simply rename the subject. So when a pronoun acts as a predicate nominative, it takes on the subjective case. So remember, that's a situation you would want to use who. So my best friend is she. In that situation, my best friend is the subject, and she is my best friend. So since those two are the same thing, she would be considered a predicate nominative since is a linking verb. And we'll practice with this more in class. So there are some steps to determine when to use who and when to use whom. If you're dealing with a question, like the sentence, blank went to the post-prom party at Ben's, and you want to know if you should use who or whom in that sentence, the first thing you want to do is change your question to a statement and leave a blank where who or whom should go. So you want to say, blank went to the post-prom party at Ben's. The second thing you want to do is decide if you would need a subjective or an objective pronoun to correctly complete the sentence. So he is a subjective pronoun. It normally acts as the subject of a sentence in the beginning, whereas him is an objective pronoun acting in the predicate part of the sentence or normally as an object. So you need to decide what makes the most sense. He went to the post-prom party at Ben's, or him went to the post-prom party at Ben's. And once you do that, it's normally pretty obvious. So step 3 is to go ahead and fill in the blank with the correct form of the pronoun. In this case, since the pronoun's acting as the subject of the verb went, the subjective he is correct. So you would choose the subjective form who to complete the sentence. So who goes with the subjective form he, whereas whom would go with the objective form of him. With a clause, it's a little bit different, so we'll get to that next. First, we have another example here. It was John, you'll find, who composed that piece. So if you turn that sentence around, you have he composed that piece or him composed that piece. Since he is correct, you would use who in that sentence. Same as the last example. Okay, with a clause, we have another sentence. I went to the concert with the person who or whom considers you his best friend. To determine there if you want to use who or whom, the first thing you want to do is isolate the adjective clause. So take that right out of the sentence. So in this case, it would be who or whom considers you his best friend. The next thing you want to do is go back to those steps that we used when we were trying to figure it out with a question and follow those directions. So the first thing we want to do is change it to a statement. Blank considers you his best friend. And then decide what fits, he or him. So you want to choose he or him to complete the sentence. He considers you his best friend would definitely be more logical than him considers you his best friend. So you want to choose the subject or object case who or whom that corresponds. Since we chose he, we would also choose the subjective form who. I went to the concert with the person who considers you his best friend would be our correct sentence. So just to recap, he corresponds to who, him corresponds to whom, and that's because who is the subjective form and whom is the objective form. So make sure you're filling in those notes on your handout, and then there's some practice examples at the bottom, and we'll be working with this more in class.